In today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast, we start our season reviews with the player that only played 30 games, Jaden Ivey. We'll review his season. I also will tell you guys why so many people are wrong about Jaden Ivey. We'll talk about what I mean there in today's episode, Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Ku Khahil. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Head up, check out the description down below where you can get the link to the Substack where I just posted Jalen Duren's playoff player season or playoff review. We also have a SARS playoff review on there. We have Cade Cunningham's playoff review on there. We also had a few breakdowns on there from each game of the playoffs. We'll have a lot more content coming to you guys over there on the Substack as well. Also, subscribe to the playback room down below as well in the description if you want to watch some playoff games and future Pistons games going into the next season together over on there. In today's episode, we start our player season reviews, not playoff reviews. We move past that. Now, we're going to talk about the season reviews, and we're going to start off with Jaden Ivey, who unfortunately had his season cut short in January. Now, according to everything we've heard, everything seems to be going really well for him. He's recovering very well. He was cleared for basketball activities. He seems to be doing really well, so there's no need to be concerned about him moving forward. He seems to be doing good. But we'll be starting with his positives. We'll be starting with his negatives, and then we'll give our overall thoughts on Ivey's season and him as a player moving forward. So I want to start with the positives, and this is where I'm going to tell you guys how everybody is so – there's so many people that are just straight up wrong about Jaden Ivey. And I understand why, because him aesthetically, the hyper athletic, fast with the ball in his hands, you know, the way he flies through the air. Like, I get why his mentality, whatever, how he carries himself. I get why some people who maybe are casuals are so wrong about Ivey. But there are a lot of people that just completely misunderstand Jaden Ivey, the basketball player. So I want to go ahead and talk about that with his positives. This year, by far the biggest improvement in Jaden Ivey's game was him as a three-point shooter. Now, this is a very small sample size because it was only 30 games he got to play. But in these 30 games, he definitely looked much improved as a three-point shooter. He shot 41% basically from deep on 5.1 attempts. This helped improve his efficiency to a career best of around 56.5 true shooting percentage. So he maintained around the same areas everywhere else, but he jumped as a three-point shooter, which is absolutely huge for him and Cade Cunningham as a fit in the backcourt. And it's absolutely huge when you consider the other players that the Pistons are building within their court, and Ausar Thompson and Jalen Duren. They need a guy at the two-guard position that can knock down threes at a pretty decent volume. And Jaden Ivey was absolutely doing that. Dive further into these numbers. If you go into his play type, he was in the 91st percentile this year as a spot-up shooter. He's one of the very best spot-up shooters in the entire NBA this season. And he's been a little up and down. His rookie season, he was really good as a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter on open looks, not as consistent on somewhat guarded looks. Then his second year, he wasn't very good on those looks, but then he jumped right back into it this year. He was much better this year. Last year, you could probably throw out due to the whole Monty Williams thing, so I get that. He comes right back to being an excellent spot-up catch-and-shooter this year for the Detroit Pistons. And now we start diving into further and why people are so wrong about him. And so many people I see talk about, well, Jaden Ivey can't play off ball. Jaden Ivey has to play with the ball in his hands. You need to put the ball in his hands. That's where he thrives. And you'll find out about this later, but that is unequivocally false. That is probably one of the most wrong statements I've heard about a player on this team in a while. Jaden Ivey is a fantastic off-ball player. Jaden Ivey is a fantastic off-ball scorer. That is what he is. He is an off-ball scorer. He is a lethal off-ball scorer. Go through all of his play types. As a handoff scorer, 81st percentile. On cuts, 95th percentile. Putbacks, 71st percentile. He is a great off-ball player in transition. When he's off-ball, he's much better. We'll get into this later in his negatives. But when he's able to attack gaps, when he's able to feast off of someone else's gravity that's creating an advantage, forcing the defense to tilt, and then he gets the ball and he's attacking a rotating defense, his quickness and speed is too much for defense to deal with. And if you add into the equation that he is a reliable and was a deadly at this point this year three-point shooter, he is a really lethal off-ball scorer. That's what Jaden Ivey is great at. So the idea that Jaden Ivey is not a good off-ball player is ludicrous. That is the player he is. He is an off-ball player right now. That's where he made his biggest improvement this year as an off-ball three-point shooter. Like I said, he shot 46% from the field this year, but that was mostly because of his increase in volume from deep and the increase in percentage. He shot 33% from deep last year. He jumped all the way to, again, like I said, 41% this year. He maintained getting to the free throw line around the exact same volume, 3.9 attempts a game. Actually went down, had a career worst free throw percentage year, but say it's around just about the exact same. It was only a percentage of a difference. I thought this year, at the very least, and this was the same for most players that played with JB this year, they were simply, Ivey was simply more focused on the defensive end. I don't think he was good. I'm not going to come on here and say he was a really good defender, but I think he was a lot more focused this year. I think he gave a lot more effort this year, especially on ball. I thought he gave more effort this year defensively, and again, you give credit to JB for that. He got everybody. I thought even the veterans, I thought he got to play much better defensively, or at least give it their all defensively. I thought Jaden Ivey did that. And I think the biggest thing with Jaden Ivey's season, positives-wise, and this is just, wrapping all of that together, is that the questions that people had was, can him and Cade play together? And the question should not be, can him and Cade play together? That is an unequivocally yes. Like, they can play together. That question has been answered. So I don't think that's something that should be discussed any longer. The question to me that should have been asked about Jaden Ivey this year is, can he inch closer to the idea of him as a player? Because the idea of him as a player fits very well with Cade. A guy who can play off ball, that can shoot off ball, can handle some on-ball reps. That player can play next to Cade, but that was the idea of Jaden Ivey heading into this year. And then this year, he made steps towards that. He became a lethal three-point shooter. He continued to be a really good off-ball player. So he answered some questions as an individual player. He became a better three-point shooter. He became an even better off-ball player. He seemed bought into that role, which I liked. He didn't seem like he wanted, I don't think any player really on this team seems like they complained a lot, whatever. But Ivey, he bought into his role. He was happy within his role. He was thriving within his role right before he got injured. There was a stretch, and then we'll wrap up Ivey's positives here. There was a stretch. So he started off the season absolutely burning hot. And then he had like a week and a half, 2 week stretch where it was like, okay, he's coming back down to earth. Is he what's going on? Is he all right? He missed 2 games. He was dealing with an injury. He missed 2 games. And then when he came back from injury, he went right back to just being amazing. For the next 5 games, he was fantastic. 20 points, 18 points, 19 points, 17 points, 22 points, all on 50% shooting, 53% shooting, 53% shooting, 78% shooting, 77 or 72% shooting. So it was like, okay, he was dealing with something. He needed to rest for a little bit. He comes back now. He's right back to where he was. So I think a lot of people feel confident about the player that he showed he was this year, and it was a player that bought into his role, was thriving within that role, and was finding the best ways to play off of the best player on the team. And I think I don't think anyone can walk away not, I was going to say impressed, but I would say just happy with this season. If you walked away not feeling great about Jaden Ivey's season, or at least feeling good about his season, then I feel like you must have a bias towards him. I don't know if there's any player, to be honest, on this team that you don't feel better about after this year. Everyone you should feel a little bit better about. And Ivey, I thought, with his off-ball scoring and his ability to shoot, how much of a jump he made in that regard, and his ability to just to buy into the role that he had and flourish in it. I thought he had it was only 30 games. Wish we could have got to see it for much longer, for a larger sample size. But for those 30 games, I feel like he showed something to make you believe, okay, he could be the guy at the 2 position. He could be that guy. So let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. How you guys feel about Jaden Ivey's season? Some positives that maybe I didn't bring up that maybe you guys feel. Let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. When we come back, now I want to get into the negatives on Jaden Ivey's season, some things he has to improve upon, his weaknesses. And again, I think this is going to be things that people are just straight up wrong about and just don't understand about Ivey. And we'll break all that down coming back. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Trust me, it was getting out of pocket. Now, we only eat what's in the house. We're doing much better with it. But now, obviously, like I said, we budget smarter and save more. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever with Monarch Money. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year with Monarch Money. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free to available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, and also check out the description down below for the Substack where we have breakdowns, reviews. We'll probably have some of the season reviews coming out over there as well. I want to get into some film breakdowns. We're going to go back and revisit some of the best, some of the worst games and break down what happened within those games. I've had a lot of great support over in the Substack. You guys seem to be really enjoying it. So if you haven't checked it out, go into the description down below and definitely join the community over there. Also, you can subscribe to the Playback Room down below as well. All right, so this is where I want to get into his weaknesses, Jaden Ivey, that is, his weaknesses as a player, but it more so is about I want to start with people just being wrong on how to analyze Jaden Ivey. The way in which people are analyzing him are wrong. The premise is wrong with Jaden Ivey, which is why I feel like so many arguments start when you bring up this basketball player, because so many people's premise is immediately wrong and they're operating on a wrong platform. What I mean by this is that so many people believe this is a player that thrives with the ball in his hands as a self-creator, as someone you want creating within your half-court offense, as someone that needs the ball in his hands making decisions. And that is not the case with Jaden Ivey. He is a fantastic off-ball scorer at this point in his career. He is fantastic at cutting into gaps. He is fantastic at feeding off of tilted defenses. He is fantastic at feeding off of rotating defenses. And he has become a much, much, much better three-point shooter. He is a really, really, really good off-ball scorer. But where his weaknesses are is on ball. He is not a very good on-ball player at this point in his career. Doesn't mean he never will be. But at this point, that is not the type of player he is. And that's where the biggest question will come about whether he can be that two guard of the future for the Pistons. Is they need somebody else within the offense that not just can attack off of Cade's gravity, not when Cade kicks it out or swings when someone's helping hard at the nail. They need somebody that Cade can now go to the corner, and this player that takes over can then create an advantage for someone else, make the right decision, score off of it, etc. And that has not been Jaden Ivey throughout his career so far. This year, he was in the 38th percentile as a pick-and-roll ball handler. In isolation, he was in the 7th percentile. In transition as a ball handler, he was in the 17th percentile. He was not very good this year as a self-creator with the ball in his hands. There is a difference between having the ball in your hands as an off-ball player and having the ball in your hands as a self-creator. When I say he hasn't been good with the ball in his hands, that does not mean when they kick it out to him and then he makes a play off of that, now I'm saying he's bad on that. No, he's a good scorer off-ball. When you are asking him to create his own advantage, and then make the right decision off of it, that's where he's not very good at. And that's what you need out of your two guard of the future. Can he develop it? Sure. We'll see if he can develop this offseason. And if he does, he's the two guard of the future. But so far, that's where he struggles at. And so many people have it completely warped around. It's, oh, he can't play off ball. He can't shoot off ball. He needs the ball in his hands to thrive. Him and Cade will never fit together. Well, that's just not the case. They do fit together because he can play well off ball. The problem is he the peak version of what you want next to Cade? Because of his struggles on ball as a creator. We'll see if he can develop that. That needs to be the biggest improvement this offseason for him. Decision maker with the ball in his hands, a self-creator with the ball in his hands, as a scorer with the ball in his hands as a self-creator. All of that is what Jaden Ivey has to improve upon. We'll bring up some more stats to back this up. According to Clean the Glass, and this is something I've brought up throughout Jaden Ivey's career, he still has not been a very good finisher around the rim. Now, I had a few people, obviously, out of Jaden Ivey's stand base, be like, well, yeah, if you're going to say Jaden Ivey's a bad finisher, then why don't you say that Cade's not a good finisher? Buddy, we've spent probably 500 podcasts talking about how Cade needs to improve his finishing. I literally just wrote probably like a 2,000-word review of his playoffs and talked about how his finishing was one of the worst in the playoffs, and they're not going to be able to take the next step if his finishing continues to be that way. So stop doing that, please. Anyways, Jaden Ivey continues to not be a very good finisher, despite his freakish athletic ability when it comes to his quickness and his athleticism. This year, he's at 60% at the rim. That's 42nd percentile in the NBA. Last year, he was in the 38th percentile. He shot 59%. His rookie year, he was at 19th percentile at 55% from the rim, at the rim. For a guy as athletic as he is and someone who can get to the rim as consistently as he can, you need him to take advantage of those paint touches. That's something that we've complained about for a few years now, is that, yes, he can be a paint touch, but he needs to convert those paint touches into something good. If a paint touch is just a paint touch for no reason, you're not generating anything off of it. So he still needs to become a much better finisher. You think, I mean, it's been 3 years, so maybe it's the same thing with Cade. So before everyone starts, oh, why are you doing the same thing for Cade? Maybe it's the same thing for Cade. But it's been 3 years, and he's only improved very, very small percentages as a finisher. So maybe this is just who he is. But a lot of people, including myself as well, are inclined to believe as someone that as athletic as he is, that can get to the rim as often as he will not continue to be this poor of a finisher throughout his career. But we'll have to see it. He's not that good of a finisher at this point. If you look at the in-between game, that's something we talked about on his pre-draft episode 3 years ago. He needed to improve as an in-between the three-point line and the rim as a scorer. And at this point, it's still somewhere he very much struggles at. Last year, he shot 38% from short mid-range. Clean the Glass has the 40th percentile. This year, he was in the 40th percentile again. Last year, he was in the 47th percentile on long twos. This year, he dropped all the way down to the 36th percentile, shot 33% on those. On all mid-ranges, last year he was in the 30th percentile. This year, he's in the 33rd percentile. So stayed right around the exact same area in all of these spots on the basketball floor. He remained somewhat the exact same finisher. Last year he was at 59% at the rim. This year he was at 60%. So he's basically the same finisher at the rim as he was his second year. He basically is the same mid-range shooter that he was in his second year. Got a little worse on long mid-ranges and got just a tad, 39, went from 39% to 38% on all middies, which is not very good. You just don't want him taking those shots at this point. The area that made, and his efficiency field goal percentage jumped from 49 to 54%. Why is that? Despite all these places being down and being where it was last year. The big improvement, it raised his efficiency, was how much he improved as a three-point shooter and the increased volume on those three-point looks, which is a good thing. That's not a bad thing. I'm not in any way trying to insinuate that's a bad thing. It is a very good thing. And he made this big of a jump on threes. On non-corner threes, he was a 44% shooter. That's in the 98th percentile. He was fantastic from anywhere outside the corners. Really good. That is incredibly valuable. But these other areas of his game are still basically the same as it was his second year in the NBA. The same as it was his first year in the NBA. He struggles in between on floaters. He doesn't really have a floater. He doesn't really have a pull-up jumper in between game. And I think the part of the in-between game that really pops off the screen with him is his decision-making. He's still not a very good playmaker. He struggles to make decisions, the right decisions, and read defenses as a passer once he gets right underneath the three-point line. That's where he really, once he gets all the way to the rim, I thought he was a better passer this year. When he gets all the way to the rim, he's able to make like that first read, I think pretty easily. The first read he can make. The second, third reads, he still struggles with, but when you're that good of an athlete and you get to the rim, usually the first read is open and you don't have to worry about that. So when he gets all the way to the rim, I think he's a fine passer. But it's when defenses go into drop coverage, contain him in between the three-point line and the dotted area, and he has to make a decision. That's where he's really struggling at still. He averaged 3.0 turnovers this year. That was much higher or not much higher, but a bit higher than he was last year at 2.5 turnovers. And this is just another stat to back up the idea that Jaden Ivey is a point guard, or Jaden Ivey needs the ball in his hands, and he's not an off-ball player. The Pistons this year, they were testing out Jaden Ivey as the backup point guard on the bench unit because they didn't really have a point guard, which is why they went out and got Schroeder at the deadline, which I thought was a really good pickup. Obviously, we'll get into his season review in a few days. But throughout the year, they were trying to run Jaden Ivey as a backup point guard and test out, okay, we'll give him the on-ball duties. He'll be able to thrive with it. That did not happen. The Pistons lost those minutes when he was the backup point guard because he's not a good self-creator right now. He's not a good playmaker right now. He's not a good decision maker as a lead ball handler, as a primary self-creator. That's not where he thrives. This year, when he was on the floor without Cade, the Pistons were outscored by 3.28 points. You could flip that. Cade without Jaden Ivey won his minutes by 4.69 points. Now, obviously, a lot of that was due to how they played after Jaden Ivey. So you can throw the Cade stat basically out of there if you want. It more so is about how Ivey without Cade was asked to be the point guard, asked to be the creator, asked to be the person leading the offense, making decisions, and that's somewhere he still is not very good at. So these are the areas that Jaden Ivey has to improve upon. He made one big step. Remember last offseason when everyone was coming after me on Jaden Ivey? Remember what I said? For those of you guys who were loyal listeners, you guys remember what I said last year. I said that there was a lot of areas Jaden Ivey had to improve upon within an offense, and I didn't believe he could improve on all of them at once in one offseason. It doesn't happen. You might get some things that improve, but having all those three things improve within one offseason was unrealistic. Well, this year, you got one of those things to improve, which is a good sign. His three-point shooting jumped. It was a major jump. He became a much better three-point shooter. Great. But these other things still need to be improved upon. Will one of those things get improved upon this offseason? Hopefully. He's a very good, hard worker. He's always in the gym. He's motivated. So is it possible that now I got the three-point in my bag. Now it's time to attack this part of my game? Yes, that is very possible, and we're all hoping that is the case. I'm on here just simply trying to relay that the way what people believe his weaknesses are not actually his weaknesses, and what people believe his strengths are not actually his strengths. Though him as an on-ball player is what needs to improve upon. I didn't really talk about his defense because I don't really expect him to ever be a good defender. You just want him to be someone who tries, and I thought he was trying this year, so I guess you live with that. Offensively, in order for him to be the two guard of the future for the Pistons, the off-ball scoring, yes, you take it. You need that as well. But Cade needs someone else within the half-court offense, not just Cade. Let me take Cade out. The Pistons need someone else, a guard next to Cade, that can also create and let Cade move off ball some and let the Pistons have multiple creators within the half court offensively. And if Jaden Ivey can improve in these areas as a decision maker with the ball in his hands, as a finisher at the rim, and as in the in-between game as a decision maker and even as a scorer, if he can just improve in one of those areas, as a finisher at the rim, he gets the paint over and over and over again. If Ivey just became a better finisher, this wouldn't even be a conversation. You live with him not being the greatest playmaker because he gets to the rim nonstop. He's an instant paint touch. He can get there whenever he wants. It's just the fact that when he gets there, he's not finishing at a high enough rate to really make up for it. If he can improve his finishing this summer, then you got your answer. You got a guy who can shoot threes off ball, can attack closeouts, all that stuff, and then on ball can get to the rim and finish at above league average pace. You're looking at a guy that probably has like a 58 true shooting percentage and scoring 20 points a game. So it's there. He can do it. He has the tools. It's just a matter of will he improve and actually get there. So let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. How you guys feel about Jaden Ivey's season? Some weaknesses in his game that maybe I didn't bring up that you guys would like to see him improve upon. Let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. just want to let all the Jaden Ivey stands know that are going to listen to this. We are having a review of every player this year. Every player is going to have a positive section and a weaknesses section. So if you want to join the party to look at everyone else's weaknesses, go ahead. We have a lot of episodes coming up. Coming up, I want to give my final thoughts, though, on Jaden Ivey's season and how I feel about him as a player moving forward. Coming up. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And also, like I said, check the description down below. Substack, playback. You guys know the deal. All right. So, where am I at with Jaden Ivey? So, everyone already knows that everyone's claimed that I'm the Jaden Ivey hater. I don't like Jaden Ivey. I think he's trash, blah, 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 blah. That's not true. I just feel like I'm the only one who's honest about Jaden Ivey. I think people are just flat out wrong about him. That's how I feel about it. Where I stand right now with Jaden Ivey is this. I think that Jaden Ivey has proven that he has a role on this team somewhere no matter what. Entering this season, I thought everyone besides Cade had to prove they had a role in this team. Asar had to prove he had a role in this team moving forward. Duren had to prove he had a role in this team moving forward. Ivey had to prove he had a role in this team moving forward. After last season, the only person who didn't really have to prove to me that he deserved a role in this team was Cade. After last year, that everyone did. And I feel like all of them, Asar, Duren, and Ivey, all proved to me that they deserve a spot somewhere on this team, that they've proved that they can have a role on this team as a winning team moving forward. He proved that to me. I really was happy with his three-point progression. He upped his volume as a three-point shooter, and while upping the volume, he increased his percentages by damn near 8%. You take that. That's a fantastic improvement. I hate that it was on such a small sample size. I wish we could have seen it over the long haul. My guess is he probably would have settled in around 5.3 attempts a game and probably would have shot 38%, somewhere around there, which is still a 5% increase on increased volume. You take that. That would have been fantastic nonetheless. That's why I would have guessed he probably would have settled out at. So I was happy with Ivey as a three-point shooter. I was also very happy with him as an off-ball scorer. I was very, very much intrigued and very much impressed with him as an off-ball player and his ability to buy into that role and really just thrive in that. So I'm also really like that. My concerns with Ivey remain the same. My concerns with him is that I know this team, and I think everybody, this is going to be a talking point all offseason, is going to be that this team needs another scorer. This team needs another self-creator, is what I would say. A few podcasts ago, I talked about the need of this team needing an isolation scorer. They were one of the worst isolation teams in the league this past year. They've been that for the last few years, obviously. They need another guy that if they get a mismatch, they can just go score the basketball. They need a guy they can give the ball to and say, here you go create advantage. We don't need a screen. You don't need all this other stuff. We give you the ball. You can create advantage and make a decision off of it. That's what I believe this team needs. Now, when I say that's what this team needs, I say that more as like taking the step to a contender. Do they need that to become a better team next year and go from the 6th seed to the 4th seed? No. They can make minor improvements and become a better team next year. So when I say that, I'm talking about more so long haul. The overall like team building is what I'm thinking about. They can be better next year without needing a superstar. Like that's not what I mean. I hope everyone understands what I'm trying to say with that. I have big questions about whether Ivey is that answer. I think a lot of people are pegging him in that answer, and I don't know if he is that. I don't think he is that. Right, if he becomes that, it will be because he improved a ton. He has the tools. He's super athletic. He can get to the paint immediately. So if he becomes a much better finisher, that helps. That certainly does help. But as of right now, the things the Pistons need, like, for example, this is, and again, the Pistons, let me make this clear before everyone loses their mind. The Pistons 100% would have been way better with Ivey this year if he was healthy. The Cade, Ivey, Asar, Tobias, Duren lineup would have been fantastic. I would have loved to see it this year. They would have been better with Ivey this year. I'll say it one more time. They would have been better with Ivey this year if he didn't get hurt. Just plug him in for THA. They would have been better, okay? With that said, my point here is, like in the playoffs, I went through all the film breakdowns. I did deep breakdowns on all of it. what the Pistons needed in the half court offensively was not what Jaden Ivey have helped? Yes, simply because he's another guy that can get to the paint and score and shoot the ball and score efficiently somewhat. He's at 56-2 shooting. He would have helped. That's not my point. He would have helped in the playoffs. Any good players would have helped the Pistons. But the Pistons' biggest glaring need in the playoffs was the fact they didn't have anyone else in the half court that they could give the ball to and say, we trust you against a playoff defense to create a good look and make the right decision. Every possession had to go through Cade, and a lot of the Pistons scoring was coming off-ball scores anyways. It was Cade attracting two guys, and then the Pistons making decisions off of that 4-on-3. Now, Ivey would have been fantastic with the scoring off of 4-on-3. He's great at attacking gaps, great at attacking tilted defenses. That's right. But the Pistons, that's not the Pistons' biggest weakness here, I think. I think the Pistons' biggest weakness is they need someone else to where Cade is not having to have the second most touches per game next to Jokic in a playoff run, because no one else can be trusted to make a read or make advantages and make the right read within the half court. If Ivey wants to become that, if fans want Ivey to be that, he has to improve as a decision maker. He has to improve as a finisher around the rim, and he has to improve as a scorer in between the three-point line when it comes to off a live dribble. If he can do that, he can be that guy. He did improve in his three-point shooting. He got one thing in the bag last year. Maybe he walks into this offseason and says, okay, I got the three-point shooting. Now I want the finishing to get there. And then maybe he comes out this year as a finisher. Then you're seeing clear progression, and you're like, okay, we can feel good about this guy, and he might actually be that dude. I'm not ruling it out. It could very well happen. I simply want to relay what it is right now and what he's been. People are wrong about the player he is. He is a fantastic off-ball player. He can play with Cade. He's great with Cade. He's a fantastic off-ball player. He's a really good shooter. He needs to improve with the ball in his hands. He has to improve as a decision maker. He has to improve as a passer. He has to improve as a finisher. He has to improve in between game. That's like and we'll wrap it up here. Like, for a guy as athletic as Ivey is and can just blow by everybody, there is no reason he should be in the 17th percentile when it comes to transition looks. No reason. Absolute zero reason he shouldn't be a beast in transition. It's because he still struggles as a finisher. He improves that, who knows what he can become. We'll see if he's able to improve it. We'll see. If he's able to, the Pistons feel really, really good. They will feel really, really good. But they need him to improve in that area, and I hope the Pistons have him working, him and his training staff are focusing on that area of his game, because that's what they need from him as the two guard next to Cade. So let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. Give me your review of Jaden Ivey's season. How do you feel about him moving forward on this team? Let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at Ku Khahil. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free to develop on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. And until next time, peace out, everybody.